Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Need to Nerd podcast. I'm your host, Spencer, and I'm joined by my co host, Wes Singleton.
Hey, how's it going tonight? I'm
Good.
actually the co-West.
Your co West. Who's the first West?
I don't know, but it was a solid take that Spencer had earlier.
Oh, man. Yeah, throw me under the bus for messing up the intro. I see how it is. I see how it is.
Every time.
You know who won't mess with us is our patrons over at Patreon. You go to patreon.com/ccmtg, become a patron of the show. It means the world to us. It's actually something that I'll work with these guys to figure out. Did I say the wrong Patreon, though? I think
You sure did.
I sure did. It's patreon.com/easygamemedia. That was just like full on Spencer podcast mode. Like that was
Yeah, doing it live.
yeah, that was great. But no, it's happening. So patreon.com/easygamemedia. It'll be something that we will look into figuring out like what we want benefits to be, what we want it to look like. It'll be the main. This podcast for me is going to be like the main podcast for the He's Game Media website and the He's Game Media YouTube channel. As you know, I explore what other types of content I want to do, and so this is kind of like the mothership show for that. So
Lots of game and media, and we'll have features faster if you subscribe sooner
exactly.
to our Patreon.
Exactly. But we got to set aside some time to kind of talk about what we want that to look like for you guys. But thank you everybody who's been listening and giving feedback so far. Let's go into this week's topic because when we found out that Michael and Mason couldn't be here, West and I immediately knew what we wanted to do.
Talk about Pokemon.
I told my wife tonight, I said, "Do you want to be on my podcast tonight?" She's like, "Why would I want to be on your podcast?" And I was like, "We're talking about your favorite thing." She's like, "What?" And my wife is a school teacher who hates Pokemon because of all the fights it causes at school.
I know all about that life, actually.
So, with that being said, we're specifically going to be talking about Ruby and Sapphire, and kind of like things that we loved about it, things we might change, where we think it ranks all time. But let's give a quick synopsis of Ruby and Sapphire. So, Ruby and Sapphire is the third generation of the RPG game Pokemon. Pokemon, for those who somehow don't know, is the game where you capture tiny Pokemon, which are monsters that go in your pocket, and you do battle with them and train them up to be giant, terrorizing fiends that destroy other people, and you collect gym badges to become the Pokemon Master.
But specifically, you're always the good person who's stopping the people who are using Pokemon for evil ends.
Exactly. And this one came off the heels of a very successful sequel to the franchise. I think that everyone loved Gold and Silver. Everything it did was great. Like Gold and Silver, the second gen, just everything that it did improved upon what Red and Blue had made.
Yeah, totally. I think that one of the cool parts about the early sequels in this franchise was how, because each was more successful than the last, they were allowed to go even bigger and even less conservative in terms of the things they improve.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I think that when you get into Ruby and Sapphire, you really see that. So let's kind of just start off with what happened. So, who was your first starter Pokemon in Ruby and Sapphire?
I heard you like Mudkip. I like Mudkip.
I love Mudkip.
That's who I picked first time.
It was also my first pick. I actually think I did Water Pokemon first pick through all three of them.
Okay.
For first time. Since then, I have. I mean, this is one that I actually had to think about it because I've replayed this game so many times that like I was like, what was my first one? But I'm pretty sure it was Mudkip. So why'd you pick Mudkip?
I picked Mudkip just because he was kind of cute, and I don't know. Water types are a super good thing to do, and I think I knew even before I played the game for the first time that it was a rock gym up first.
That's what I did
and
too.
I like that aspect.
Yeah, it certainly put the game on easy mode for you when you got to beat the first gym that way.
Mudkip is easy mode on the game in so many ways, especially the third gym.
Well, not only that, but like there's so many water HMs in this game that I don't know about you, but my Mudkip turned into an HM machine pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's actually always been the reason I've been sad to pick water types in early Pokemon games, is because I know that I'm farming the moveset off of my starter Pokemon. Like I would so much rather just like keep a Tentacool in my back pocket for the entire game than like waste more than Surf is obviously great. Surf is a
Right.
fantastic move on
Especially
all
in this
water
game when
Pokemon.
you start getting into the double battle situations.
Oh yeah, that was totally true. So that's actually an awesome mechanic to talk about when talking about Ruby and Sapphire, is that this is the first game that had the double battling
Yeah.
mechanic.
Well, let's get into that. So our first Pokemons were both Mudkip. Let's talk about some of the things that we both love from the game. Do you want to talk about like the improvements to the game, or do you want to just go into like what we love personally?
I think that improvements makes a lot of sense considering I think the defining characteristic of Ruby and Sapphire in relation to the previous Pokemon games is that it's on the Game Boy Advance,
Yeah.
which gave it a lot better options in terms of graphics and processing power.
Yeah, I think that the other thing about it being on the Game Boy Advance is, you know what's really funny? Was the Game Boy SP already out when this came out? I lost you.
Sorry, I muted myself. I am going to look at this right now because I know when Ruby and Sapphire came.
So it looks like this might have come out the same year as the. I think I got these together.
Yeah, that would make sense. That's not what I know is marketed alongside the Game Boy Advance SP, because I know that my family's SP was purchased at Costco with Super Mario Bros. 3.
I also got that.
But the Ruby and Sapphire was a big part of the Game Boy Advance SP. And I think that, yeah, actually, just part of why Ruby and Sapphire was awesome is that you could play so much more of it than you could play of like Gold and Silver before then, because you had a backlit screen, you had a longer battery life, it was more portable than ever,
Yeah,
which is awesome.
I think that the Game Boy, that might be why this sits so far in my like Pokemon rankings. But like playing this first game on a backlit screen on your SP was certainly a thing of beauty in my heart.
Well, and this game's graphics are so much farther ahead than Gold and Silver, is that I don't think that they're that much worse than like Black and Whites.
Yeah,
So they're
I think you just like you get onto the system that's like basically a mini Super Nintendo, right? And
yeah,
so, but the graphics are like a little bit better than, if I remember correctly, than the Super Nintendo.
that sounds right. I haven't spent that much time on the Super Nintendo, so
Sure. The I think that for me this was that like the big improvements to me are number one just contests, like having another game within your game that was very enjoyable and actually like rewarded you for like building your Pokemon for both battle and for contests at the same time was really cool.
yeah, contests were a lot of fun. Starting to figure those out right when I was like playing that at like 8 years old was like super interesting. Because yeah, the contests were things, but like it was funny how like me and like the group of 9-year-old kids I was hanging out with were like, I want cool Pokemon in my contest, not beautiful Pokemon in my like or whatever, right? Like
Sure.
and it lets you like choose your own way. Although Smart was always kind of a funny contest area.
Yeah, that's the downside of contests is when you. But it was funny. Like I remember maxing out. One of the cool things that I like. It's actually one of the reasons that Blaziken might be one of my favorite Pokemon. Is that it was really easy to master both Beauty and Cool with Blaziken.
Fighting for cool and fire for beauty.
Yeah, so it was like, and like quick attack, like just tons of really good move setups. Like throughout your evolution that let you do both tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And those were like typically my favorite Pokemon, and it made me appreciate Pokemon in different ways, right? Like, and appreciate movesets in different ways.
Yeah, I think Blaziken is a super awesome Pokemon.
Yeah,
It was one of the first Gen 3 Pokemon ever previewed in the anime, as well as just like it's been having callbacks for years. Like Mega Blaziken is a big part of the Pokemon XY series.
yeah. I think like Blaziken is. I mean, it is my favorite Pokemon. It's that or Charizard X. Like,
Well, there's a really cool Blaziken Charizard fight in Johto if you want to go watch it.
oh, that sounds so cool.
Yeah, it's the
probably
end of the
watch that.
Johto League.
I'd probably go watch that. But that being said, one of the other improvements was double battles. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so the double battle mechanic was cool because both players would send out 2 Pokemon, and then on every turn you would choose moves for both of those Pokemon, but you usually had to pick which Pokemon you were going to attack, because most attacks are single target. So you would choose either your opponent's left or right Pokemon. But then you got to maximize this format in a way by using area of effect attacks that hit multiple Pokemon and sometimes even your ally Pokemon, which if you got really fancy was an even better benefit. Or you could do things like, and then it just set up lots of opportunities for like nice combos and clever strategic decisions, like using Earthquake alongside a flying type Pokemon, because Earthquake hits all other Pokemon in the battle, but you can negate that downside of hitting your Pokemon by having a flying type Pokemon that doesn't get hit at all.
Exactly. Yeah. And it changed competitive Pokemon forever, really.
I'm actually kind of sad that ever happened. I would rather have all competitive battles be single battles, but that's neither here nor there.
Sure. So that's something that you might change. Maybe you would change that never happened.
I think it's actually still on the whole benefit for the game to exist, just because it makes flavorful sense. I just wish it wasn't the choice that someone made a long time ago for competitive and had stuck.
I see.
But it's also a smart choice because it moves quicker. Yeah. Double battles are a lot faster than single battles. But I'm just in the minority of people who would rather play longer battles with more decisions.
I think some of the other things that I really loved about this game is it felt like. So I am not a fan of Diamond and Pearl Pokemon. Like it's when the Pokemon start to look weird to me. And I don't always feel. There's some Pokemon in Ruby and Sapphire that feel that way, but it honestly feels like the last gen where like all the Pokemon seemed pretty reasonable looking.
I just have to fight against that notion because reasonable looking is so subjective. Yeah, and all Pokemon are my children.
No, it's true. But like, it's funny because like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I do like the aesthetics of this game, and it might just be nostalgia. Like, if adult Spencer looked at something very similar to Pokemon today, like, how cool would I think that they were? And that's kind of a tough thing to say. But I really did like the colors in this gen are much more vibrant than previous gens.
Yes, they are so vibrant in this gen, which is really cool, with lots of blues and greens.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that like Roselia is a really good example of a Pokemon that would not have looked like that on previous generations because like they're showing off the Game Boy SP backlight. They're showing off these colors that pop for Pokemon now.
Yeah, I mean they're doing that from like the very beginning of the like when you turn the game on, right? The like the pond image and then it goes up like even that is so beyond the Gengar versus Nidorino of
to be fair,
Red
it looks
and Blue.
really, really cool on Fire Red or Leaf Green.
Oh, it looks super cool. It even looks rad when they did it like in later stuff too. That fight's actually a classic.
Yeah, I mean, it's like episode 1 of the anime too.
It's been in so many places. They use it in Origins. It's a great callback because it's like the first thing
all of us saw.
Yeah, totally.
You know what? I think like I kind of talked about like my love of the Switch, and I just think that like I'm sure that the first time I turned on my SP was probably with a Pokemon game. Like,
oh yeah.
Like I'm sure it was, and I think that it's just super cool. Things that anything else that you really loved
about the game? Things I really loved. There were so many hidden things in this game, right?
That's true.
So like Red and Blue was fairly linear. Not in the map was linear, but like you kind of just kept going on the path the whole time. Gold and Silver, there were like a few more areas where like you go back after you get more HMs or whatever, and they really open up. In Ruby and Sapphire, there were secrets to chase around the map until today, right? Like the Reggies. Like before, like this was in 2003. This was before the internet had really taken over our lives. Like if you didn't know how to go looking for those Pokemon, you were so lost. That Braille made no sense.
Right.
Braille with full-on apostrophes, because not really, but like the puzzles to find the Reggies and fight them and capture them was super cool.
Yeah, I think that when I beat it, one of my biggest questions was, when do I go back? Like, when am I going to Johto now? Because at the end of the second one, you got to go back to Kanto.
Yeah, I think that like they should have that was like an innovation of the second gen that should have just been standard. It just should Pokemon should always have been cumulative.
It would have been pretty hard, right? Like,
Uh,
and
That
like,
would it would have changed the way that they made all future games, but like I think that like and it may not even always be like going back to all of them. Maybe it's just back to one of the previous regions because they're near each other or whatever.
sure, that makes sense. Yeah.
But go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's totally fair. I think going back one would have been sweet. I mean, and it's not like they didn't do cool stuff, right? Like, is it Fire Red, Leaf Green that you jump onto that like new world in that game? On the
Yeah,
train?
the
Yeah.
you don't go on the train, you go on a boat,
There you go.
and it's a set of islands, Rainbow Islands, maybe.
Yeah. What's the one where you fix the train and can go back and forth? Oh, that's
Johto.
yeah, that's
You have
cool.
to turn the power back on at the power plant.
Well, no, but is it
It's in Kanto, actually.
okay? Yeah, there we go. That's what happens. I'm lost, man. I can't remember this stuff. All right, so let's talk about some of the things that we might change. I have one right off the bat. There are too many HMs in this game. Like, there are so many HMs in this game.
Yeah, Surf, Waterfall, and Dive is a pretty egregious set of water things. That said, the map is over half water, so it kind of makes sense that it's such a water HM based game. But Rock Smash just never needed to be an HM ever, even a little bit.
Yeah, I think especially considering like you already have cut, so it's like like you're not. It's not actually changing the mechanic, right? Like it's all kicker, man. Like
Well, yeah. The reason HMs exist is they're just ways to make sure you go beat the gym before you move on to the next area. Which I think
by the way,
one of the things.
I don't remember how I did it, but finished. I must have been game sharking, but beat all of Pokemon Blue, and then I walked to the Elite Four and got stopped at the third gym, and they're like, you can't come in, and I'm like, what?
Well, yeah, you can easily beat Pokemon Blue without beating Lieutenant Surge because you know what Lieutenant Surge's HM is?
Is it Flash?
It's Fly.
Oh.
So like if you don't need Fly to beat the game, right? You just need Fly because it's awesome.
Oh, so I legitimately did it. I just like forgot.
Yeah, you didn't break anything. It's just that game actually. The red and blue Kanto map allows you to pretty much go in whatever direction you want after you beat Misty.
Sabrina.
Misty.
Well, because you can't go into one of the towns.
You can't go into Saffron City until you visit Celadon City. You can't visit a lot of places until you visit Celadon City. But it's not because you beat Erica. It's because
Sure.
you got the tea or whatever, or the lemonade to give to the guard in Saffron City. And it's because you
Fair enough.
beat Team Rocket's base in the game corner.
There you go. All right, but yeah, I think there's too many HMs in this one. I think that like overall, I just find myself being like another HM, another HM. I also just think Flash is like the worst HM ever, and you had to use that a lot in this game.
No, not really.
And
Just
isn't there three caves?
pretty consistent. It's the cave right next to where you get Flash and the Victory Road.
No, there's another one. Isn't it? Isn't one of the islands you need Flash in?
It might be like at the very bottom of there's the ice cave.
I think that's what it is.
Might be towards the bottom of it. You need it, sure, but that's a pretty optional area.
Maybe I'm wrong though. Maybe it's only those two places. It felt like a lot, but it's probably because I don't like that HM.
Yeah, Flash is pretty not fun.
Yeah. What about you? What would you change?
What would I change in this game? I think the thing I wish for every single time I go play Ruby and Sapphire was that the physical special changes they made in 4th gen had happened in 3rd gen.
What do you mean?
So in 4th gen they added like some fire attacks are physical damage and some fire attacks are special damage as
I
opposed to
actually
all
hate
fire.
that change.
Oh, see it for me, it just makes Pokemon viable. Like Gyarados is such a better Pokemon when
I
Waterfall is a
see.
physical attack.
I see. That makes sense. It's from a
Um,
competitive standpoint, it's better.
and just from like wanting to maximize the value of Pokemon standpoint, which isn't any competitive thing. It's just the whole point of Pokemon.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. That's a good point. Um,
And one of the reasons I really liked Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire was because I got to play Ruby and Sapphire where those changes were implemented.
that's fair. I don't think there's anything else that I would really change on this one. Like, it's. I mean, we'll get into this, but where did this rank for us all time? This is number one for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just think that it is Pokemon's biggest leap in my opinion.
I actually can't disagree with that at all. It's the changes made in Ruby and Sapphire are so big that in the categorization of Pokemon games in my head, it's Gens 1 and 2, all of the other generations. Because Ruby and Sapphire was so far ahead. And partly it was because it was 5 years between that and Gold and Silver, that it was just a huge upgrade.
It's kind of crazy to think about that in addition to like it blows your mind right at the start. Like you talked about that opening scene, but then you also have like you get your running shoes and it's just like, wait a second. This
They
just
want me to
got
move in this game.
real.
Yeah.
Like that's a big deal to me as you know, how I mean it
Oh,
my
they
B
did
button.
introduce running shoes. That's crazy. Yeah, they did.
Yeah. So like you just start holding your B button right away, man. Like it's just
That mechanic has broken a lot of B buttons over the years for people.
I'm sure it has. I'm sure it has. But I think that's what I mean by like it just like so many huge strides, double battles, running shoes, the graphics, the
berries
berries.
that you can grow. That
Yeah.
was such a cool mechanic. That was so much fun.
It still is. It's still fun
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I guess I haven't noticed if you can even do that on the new gen.
In Sun and Moon, they're in your pocket. In X and Y, it's a non-mechanic because they're just on trees around. It's like Gen 2 style.
Sure.
5th gen, there were no berries.
Yeah, that's too bad because it was cool to grow your
4th
berries.
gen had berries, I think.
Yeah. So for me, like berries, like there's so many cool things. Hideouts was like kind of cool when I was a kid.
Hideouts was an awesome mechanic. I really liked that one. That one was just a lot of
Yeah.
fun because minute aesthetic things like are what take RPGs far,
Yeah.
right? Because they add replayability and late game playability.
Yeah. It was just sweet. Like this one's number one for me. Where does it rank for you?
I would say that specifically Emerald ranks maybe number 2 for me.
Okay.
Just
for
Emerald,
Battle Tower,
yeah, well, Battle Frontier.
Battle Frontier. Sorry.
Yeah, one of the things they like Ruby and Sapphire did a lot of this. Emerald did the rest of the work. They totally took the post Elite Four game and broke it wide open with a ton of things to do. Right, there were just lots of objectives in the late game of Pokemon Emerald, which was
fair.
really fun.
Totally fair. I just put them all together. I do understand that, that Battle Frontier exists, but this one just it's up there number one for me. What is your number one?
Heart Gold, Soul Silver.
I did know that. Well, before we wrap it up and before we give this generation a letter grade, let's talk about Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. So I bought Omega Ruby. And my biggest thing with it is after X and Y, it actually felt like a disappointment.
X and Y was just so good it couldn't have lived up.
And X and Y, it's not just that, right? Like Platinum and Pearl and Diamond were very fun games.
Mm-hmm.
But they also tapered off my interest into Pokemon a little bit. And when I first played Black and White, it was like, I'm kind of done with this. And I had no interest. Like, it had lost something. I don't know what it was for me. Maybe it's like I was playing, but I was still playing so many video games. Like, I don't know what it was.
I think that a lot of people have felt that, right? Black and White was kind of a hard generation, and part of it was the nostalgia. Like in Ruby and Sapphire, if you were playing that and the last game you had played was Pokemon Yellow, there were still Pokemon you recognized and Pokemon you knew well, right? Like
Right.
Zubat was thrown in your face every 5 minutes in that game. And he's just a total G. I love Zubat.
Yeah. Maybe
Um,
that's what it was. Maybe like it felt like they had gone too far off the rails, and it was funny because somebody who else had similar feelings to me had said, "Suppose you got to go buy X and Y," and it was like, "Why?" They're like it's the best Pokemon game ever made, and I was like, "What?" They're like, "Just play it, you'll love it," and I got sucked in so fast on that game.
I played the most competitive Pokemon I ever played in X and Y.
Yeah, it was just beautiful, and like I don't know if it was the 3DS, like if it was like the like having a 64 in your hands made that big of a difference. But like it was legitimate. It was a real a real change for me that I really enjoyed. And then going to Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, I don't know, it's got the name of my favorite Pokemon game. I
Yeah.
just got invested in Pokemon again, and it was just kind of a letdown.
Um, yeah, I mean, I can tell you what I wanted it to have that it didn't have that I was super sad about.
What's that?
Battle Frontier.
Totally fair. I think that's totally fair.
Because my two top games have Battle Frontiers in them. Which makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I think they were really fun, but also like Ruby and Sapphire is a hard Pokemon game in the standard of them, and ORAS was not.
Yeah, I that could be true too. I don't know if that had anything to do with it for me. Um, but it's funny because like I love Heart Gold Soul Silver,
Mhm.
and I love all of the remakes, and
Yeah,
I don't know that I love Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire.
valid. I don't know if I do either. So
You know what the thing is? I think the truth is I just don't think adding Mega Evolutions, which I already had, was enough of like an improvement to the remake. So like with Heart Gold Steel Silver, like I got running shoes. I got and same thing with like I got the previous improvements to these games, and I think that Pokemon might have thought that that's the reason that people fell in love with X and Y, and I don't think Mega Evolutions was the reason they fell in love with it at all.
no. You know what they could have done to make Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire like the best Pokemon game ever?
What?
It's the easiest mechanic in the world to add.
What?
Your Pokemon following you.
Yeah, it would have been sweet. I don't. They just. They. I think they just missed what we loved about X and Y and didn't apply it the way that they applied previous remakes. So, and I understand that they're not doing a Diamond and Pearl. Is that correct?
I would be really surprised if they ever made a Diamond and Pearl remake. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
At this point, you don't need to remix Gen 4.
To be fair, I actually one of the things that I really like about Ruby and Sapphire that Omega Alpha and Alpha Sapphire improve upon is actually the lore of Pokemon starting to be created. Like I actually do like that.
Yeah.
Because, like, in the first two games, you get the lore of Mewtwo, which isn't really Pokemon lore, right?
No.
Other than Mew. And then you, like, it kind of builds upon that.
Yeah.
So, I do think that they did a better job of that in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. So, I guess I'd give it credit for that.
What's your pick between the two awesome basics hundreds of the game? Are you a Salamence or a Metagross guy?
Salamence?
Okay, I'm a Metagross guy, so that's fun. We can disagree on something.
Fair enough, fair enough. So, what would you give this gen's letter grade?
Oh, something like an A minus.
That's where I'm at too. Like I don't think it's an A plus. I don't think it's a perfect game. And maybe that's the other thing that disappointed me so much with the remakes is I was like, oh, they're getting a chance to remake this. They'll make it perfect, and it didn't feel perfect.
Yeah, Heart Gold Soul Silver perfected
Yeah,
the Gen 2. It went above and beyond and like closed so many things.
yeah. I think
They could have done that too.
I think that's why maybe that's what it is. Is that Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire is probably just a great video game if I had never played Ruby and Sapphire.
Yeah, and think of all the people that did get to have that situation.
That's true. They probably just freaking loved it.
Yeah, I bet they all had a really good time.
Yeah, yeah. I'd give this an A minus. Also, I thought B plus, but like I would be ashamed of myself if I did not give this game an A.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe again, letter grades are hard because Are you in a person who thinks that like C is average or C is pretty bad, right?
Sure.
So
What would you rate it 0 to 5?
4.25.
Yeah, I would rate it a 4.5 pretty easily. Like it is. I mean, I think it's the best Pokemon game ever made, and even though some people think Pokemon might be silly or something, there's a reason that it's so popular, and it's because
Yeah.
it's a good game.
Well, Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire and Emerald have all held their retail value to this day.
Yeah,
Right? You walk into a GameStop, you're paying $35 for a copy of Ruby.
yeah, without a sticker on it,
Yeah.
because that thing's been washed 6 times. Like, let's
Yeah,
be real.
indestructible.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I would give this game like a 4.5 and be really happy about it.
What's your team?
Oh man. Oh man. Like what's my like what would my team be on that game?
Yeah, I would
Like
have
my elite my versus the Elite 4?
Yeah, like I would have a Swampert, I would have a Swellow, I would have a Walrein. I love Walrein. That Pokemon's really cool.
So it would probably be Mantrike, Combuskin, or not Combuskin, Blaziken, probably Salamence. Um uh
Would you ever use Camerupt?
I have before.
Yeah, he's around.
I think if I'm not mistaken, you didn't get an Eevee in this game, did you?
No.
I didn't think so. I think
Oh, you know what you do get that's pretty rad? And I think is definitely a thing we haven't talked about at all.
yeah.
Gardevoir.
What?
Gardevoir?
What is
Ralts' evolution?
Oh, I never used it.
Really?
No, not
Oh,
really.
that Pokemon is like something that was just like anecdotal about that game. Ralts is in like the second route of the game, the third route maybe,
Yeah.
but it's a really low % chance to find. And I
Really?
think I would try. It's like 5%.
Oh, I think I usually almost always got it.
Yeah. Well, like I would sometimes spend a half an hour searching for alts, and I
Right.
did it every time because that Pokemon was sweet.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I'd start with those three for sure. I I'm not sure what I would do for some of the other stuff, but like I think that Blaziken and Mantrike and Salamence are like some of my favorites.
Yeah, those are all really cool Pokemon.
I don't know. I usually tried to have like my typical party just for the game because I enjoy it is usually a dragon type Pokemon, a water type Pokemon, a fire type Pokemon, an electric type Pokemon.
Electric covers grass so well that you just never need grass.
Yeah. Usually, sometimes psychic, sometimes ghost. Kind of depends on my mood.
Yeah,
Uh,
I do love me an Alakazam or a Gengar.
yeah, it's usually one of those two. Which
And they
is
were
that,
both in
does
that
that make me
game.
weird?
No, I think that one of the awesome parts about Ruby and Sapphire, they're like a lot of like the most classic Kanto Pokemon are there without a lot of the most medium Kanto Pokemon.
Right. Yeah.
You had Geodude, Abra, Machop, Ghastly.
I do have one other change that I actually really hate about these games that I actually hate about this last game, this game that I'm playing right now, the Sun and Moon. I hate it when Wingull is the first water Pokemon you see. So I don't like my water type to also be a flying type. I don't know why I've always had a problem with that.
You're just really risk adverse to the electric type beating
It's
it
just
badly.
like it's so bad against electric. And it's also I guess it's better against grass though. I don't know.
You know what water type was sweet in Ruby and Sapphire and was usually the only reason a grass type would ever make it onto my team?
Who's that?
Ludicolo.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Pineapple guy. Happy Pineapple guy is so fun.
Yeah, it's funny because like I think that the other thing that I liked about this game is that other people like different parties than I did. So like I had people who loved Wailord, like they just friggin' loved it. And to me,
Dude, Water Spout's a fun move.
yeah, it's interesting. Man, I forgot how many Pokemon I liked in this gen.
Most of the new Pokemon in that gen are awesome.
Yeah. These weren't fairy types yet, right?
Nope.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's right. Yeah.
But it was like the first game where a lot of like dark and steel types got made, which was really cool.
Yeah. I usually have dark type moves on my other Pokemon so that I don't need a dark type Pokemon. So,
Yeah.
so. But yeah, what about you? What would your party be?
I would have a Gardevoir. I would have a Swampert. I might even still have a Ludicolo. My electric type Pokemon might even just be like Pikachu in that game. It's pretty late, but you would use like a Magneton until then.
Yeah. No Mantrike, huh?
The Pokemon's never really excited me. I don't know why.
All right. All right.
I would try to make Cast Form work, and then it wouldn't every single time.
Okay.
And then my like backline would just be like some manner of like Absol, maybe a Machamp, a Machoke. I just haven't found a friend to trade with me yet. I don't know.
Wow, the Gen 3 Pokedex, by the way, is the coolest looking of all the Pokedexes.
What do you mean by that?
What do you mean?
Like just all the Pokemon are sweet?
No, the Pokedex itself
Oh yeah, that's a cool Pokedex.
is like really sweet.
Not a Digivice though.
It's not a Digivice because it's a different game, West.
There have been Pokedexes that are just Digivices.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I also will want to give this game a shout out because just before we go, that I love all three of the starters, and there's not a lot of games that I feel that way about.
Yeah, we actually gave no love. We haven't even said the word Trico once.
I love Trico.
Which,
I love Sceptile.
Yeah, Leaf Blade was such a cool attack. It was
Dude,
just
the
slash
whole-
but grass type.
Yeah. All right, I'm just gonna do this really quick because you got me curious. What would my team be? I'll just kind of go through this very large Pokedex really quick.
Oh, my flying type would be a Crobat. I know that.
Yeah. So Salamence for sure. I think that Blaziken for sure. Probably yeah, Mantrike for sure. Oh my gosh, I forgot Tropius was in this game. That Pokemon's so cool.
Tropius is pretty rad.
Tropius, is that what it's called? That Pokemon's sweet.
That's what I've always called it.
I don't know. I think like Trop is in Tropical is what I've always called it. But you know, I'm sure that the internet can tell us correctly. You know what Pokemon I kind of fell in love with recently that I've been using more? It might be because they adjusted its typing, but its Sandslash is like pretty high up there for me now. Is it just
Like a Alolan Sandslash?
No, I really like the ground Sandslash.
Well, his type has never been adjusted. He's always been ground type, mono ground.
Has he always been mono? Oh, I like it. I'm a fan.
I like Sandslash a lot. A Pokemon I realized I love in that game and definitely got interesting as time went on was I felt like Azumarill was really more of a Pokemon in Gen 2 than it ever was a Pokemon in Gen 3 than it ever was a Pokemon in Gen 2.
Yeah, I usually had one on my squad if I had either had that or a Gyarados basically all the time.
That said, Azumarill really became a Pokemon in Gen 4. So,
you know, when I'm looking at this though, I think that when I battled the Elite Four, I always had a Mideana with me.
it was a good Pokemon. It was really solid from the beginning on.
Right. It was a nice one to have. I usually had given up my Swellow for something else by then though.
Crobat.
Not a
love
Crobat.
me a Crobat. I love Crobat.
I don't think that I'll ever like a Zubat-like Pokemon.
No. Crobat changed me from hating Zubat to loving Zubat.
No,
it was
forever,
that fast.
Forever Zubat hater. I'm gonna get T-shirts made. Zubat hate forever.
I would wear it.
Let's do it. I'll get them made for the podcast. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening this week. We'll see you guys all next week with another episode of Need to Nerd. Don't forget to the like button, the sub button, and then check out the podcast on iTunes. Thank you so much. You can say bye. It's an audio podcast.
Yeah, thanks for listening.